In the event of a Yellowstone super eruption, it would leave a big hole in the United States. This is what an expert describing the cataclysm explains to us. We know Yellowstone is one of the 20 some odd supervolcanoes of the world, and in an event of a super eruption, of course, it would be devastating not only for North America, but also for the world. The Yellowstone volcano eruption would tear out a big hole in the western United States, blanketing swaths of the continent in ash. This is what a volcanologist claims. Yellowstone volcano is counted among the world's most terrifying volcanic features, even though the odds of it blowing in our lifetime are pretty slim. But should this supervolcano rear its ugly head one day, some geologists fear the potential chaos and destruction unleashed would be devastating. Yellowstone's last period of activity went off about 70,000 years ago when the volcano oozed lava to create the Pitchstone Plateau in Wyoming. Yellowstone is found in Wyoming, Montana, Idaho area. But the real whoppers struck about 640,000 years ago, 1.3 million years ago, 2.1 million years ago, because they were super eruptions, three caldera forming super eruptions carved into the shaped Yellowstone landscape. Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. Yellowstone has over 60% of the world's geysers and over 10,000 hydrothermal areas. Lots of geysers, mud pots, things like that going off regularly in Yellowstone. Now, scientists compared the blasts of the super eruptions to the 1991 Pinatubo eruption in the Philippines, considered the second largest eruption of the 20th century. The eruption was devastating for more than 800 people, displaced another 10,000, and belched a column of smoke and ash 25 miles into the atmosphere. But what would happen if a comparable blast tore through Yellowstone supervolcano today? In other words, if it was something like that. According to Dr. Robert George Andrews, volcanologist turned science writer, another super eruption at Yellowstone would be completely devastating. He explained the damage would be mostly contained within the United States, and the volcanic fallout would spread around the continent, blanketing cities in many meters worth of ash. That is, many yards worth of ash. Some scientists speculate a major blast could even trigger a global volcanic winter by blotting out the sun and cooling the atmosphere, which would be devastating for livestock, crops, and all life on Earth, of course. The cooling would be caused by the tremendous amounts of sulfur dioxide released by the eruption, which is effective at reflecting sunlight back into space. This turn of events could then lead to widespread crop failures, triggering an international food crisis, and we had events like this going on in the past. Now, thankfully, the odds of this happening are so small, you should not lose any sleep over it, the scientists say. In an article for Inverse, Dr. Andrews said, for example, if Yellowstone decided to engage in a super eruption, most of the damage would be to the United States, and you'd essentially have a big hole where the national park was, and the amount of ash it would dump on North America would be quite extreme. He said it would cause agricultural problems, and it would clog up car engines, knock out power lines, pollute waterways. And he explained if it was even a moderate eruption, it could release enough ash to block a city's sewer system for up to 2 years, obviously. Now, this would restrict access to water and prevent people from even flushing their toilets. Andrew said most of the ashfall would be around the continent in which the eruption would have happened. We're talking many meters worth of ash, and it would be a huge problem. We would have to use the technology, we have to push it all into the sea. Problem is, no one in the modern era has ever had to deal with such a cataclysm on such a large scale. And he said the worst effects might be some sort of global Great Depression, because if it happened in North America, the economy would completely crash, and that would have ripple effects everywhere. Now, the good news is U.S. Geology Survey, USGS, scientists who monitor the volcano around the clock think a volcanic eruption at Yellowstone is the most devastating scenario, but it is also the least likely. Instead, a hydrothermal eruption is the most likely type of blast expected to go off at the Yellowstone caldera in the future. Hydrothermal eruptions are driven by shallow reservoirs of scorching water and steam, the same process that causes Yellowstone's geysers to erupt, and such a hydrothermal eruption can blow out craters measuring a whole kilometer across. The U.S. Geological Survey explained such explosions could blast out shallow craters more than a kilometer wide, as has occurred in the northern Yellowstone Lake Basin, including Mary Bay and nearby Turbid Lake and Indian Pond, and in western Yellowstone National Park north of Old Faithful. They said each of these craters was produced by steam blasts within the past few thousand years. This is from Express UK by Sebastian Ketley. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support.